Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Kipchumba Murkomen, Senator-elect of Elgeyo Marakwet County, is our guest this morning. And so we're still waiting for the first sitting of the Senate, but already we see quite a bit of jostling for positions of leadership. The Speaker and various others. What do you make of that?
It's normal. You know, somebody asked me the other day, how does it feel when you're meeting for the first time? Because we have only met informally. And I was telling them it's like joining high school. You've all
as
passed,
a fresher.
Yeah, you've all passed excellently. You're asking yourself questions as to what was the margin of your success, and then you're wondering, all of you are wondering, will I be number one or the last one at the end of the term? But I think, so that is the kind of environment. Everybody's trying to get himself or herself a place, and majorly himself anyway, because we
but this
men. So I think it's normal. I mean, we're all politicians asking for.
The seats have been divided.
Yeah.
We know which party will get what seat. For instance, in Parliament, this Jubilee hasn't decided who between Ruto and who will get what, isn't it? That's been determined. The only thing we don't know is the individuals.
Well, there's a political agreement that if one pushes for Speaker, you should consider the other for leader of majority and so forth. But
these are alliances.
But also depending on the quality and the getting the right person, because sometimes you might have talked about, okay, the other person would assist us in getting a deputy speaker, but then there is no qualified person from that side for deputy speaker and so forth. So that kind of discussion is not cast in stone. It's a gentleman agreement that is expected to be implemented, of course, but with agreement between the parties. And by the way, the two cannot just make a decision. The president and deputy president-elect cannot just make a decision. They have to, it's through the parliamentary group. So people will again sit down and look at competences and
but it's also being framed as a discussion between big parties versus small parties, as we've been seeing, because these are alliances.
Yes.
And that's why we're seeing the jostling taking place.
Absolutely.
So what's your reading of that situation? Because you have the big parties saying that they command bigger numbers, and the smaller parties saying you couldn't have gotten to where you are without us. Yeah.
In fact, I mean, definitely there has to be some concessions made, especially as a result of the post-elections agreements. I mean, there would be parties that brought 2 senators, 3 senators, and I mean, they will play a role if they are going to be part and parcel of our coalition. Then we have to concede certain things. So, I mean, that agreement, that's why I'm saying it's not cast in stone, because you will be talking about particular coalition coming in and asking that, can I be pushed for a chairman of a particular committee? Can I be the leader of majority? Can I be the deputy chief whip? Whatever the position you're going to agree, but it is not cast in stone. It will be dependent, and that's why, rightly so, people are lobbying left, right, and center, and it's expected. It's a political process. But
how can we be sure that we won't see this sort of lobbying and perhaps differences emerge as the Senate, execute your oversight role?
I think we will be under so much pressure. I mean, of course, definitely in any situation there will be people who will be disappointed in an elective process, because some will get, some will not. But ultimately, when we sit in that house, the question we'll be asking ourselves is, what is public interest? In fact, we will be judged in terms of our abilities. The possibility of being re-elected again will be based on how we will have succeeded in protecting devolution. And so collectively, we have no choice but to work together, because the things that we are going to be pushing in Senate are beyond just narrow political interest, and the public interest will be very important.
Okay.
But you are the one who's doing that.
Yeah.
Young, hopeful, energetic.
Yeah.
That necessarily is not. If you see the 10th Parliament, overriding factor was not public interest.
Yeah.
It was the salaries, it was retirement, and I don't know whether you think about that. As a young senator, the allowance, the salaries you get, whether they will not be an issue. That's not of public interest.
It might be an issue, I don't know, but the key thing is that the major roles, the functions of the Senate are defined in such a way that if you keep bickering, there's pressure from your governor. In fact, that's why you have to work together with the governor, because he's under pressure to be protected and the resources to be released down there. If my county has been denied resources by virtue of, say, procurement bottlenecks at the central government or Ministry of Finance or whatever ministry, because they are still, the constitution, the transition phase says that national government should assist the counties get the capacity. If that is not happening, it does not matter that I'm a Jubilee senator. I mean, really, the judgment down there will be very harsh. That is why collectively as a Senate we have to push for procedures that are going to assist our counties, and I think we will have to care less about our parties, because what we will be doing is collective interest of the nation.
You see this jostling for power, dividing these coalitions.
The cake.
The cake, saying that we agreed on this matter.
Yeah.
The MOU was not honored.
Yeah.
I can see some problem in Nakuru, for instance,
yes,
where they are trying to get, or even Nairobi,
yeah,
who becomes what? Can that bring problems between the two principles of the Jubilee coalition?
As I said, conflicts are bound to occur. I mean, in every situation, whether it's a family or whatever setup, the most important thing is what mechanisms have been put in place. The coalition, the Jubilee coalition agreement, puts in place dispute settlement mechanisms among the top leadership that they are able to consult and be able to find solution. And ultimately, if Kipchumba lost a particular position that he was pushing, that should not push the country and the overall interest, the public good, to crumble. The most important thing is to ensure that Kipchumba's interests will be dealt with, but the overall goal of delivering services to the people is achieved. And I think that is very important. In fact, I'm sure that after government is formed, you will find these groups saying, oh, we would have wanted a principal secretary from our area, we would have wanted a cabinet secretary to come from our area, and so forth. For me, what's more important is to say ultimately Jubilee coalition, if it forms government, depending on the court case, must particularly deliver certain services, which have been provided for in the manifesto. One of which is to deliver youth fund, which will be given to youth at the local level to start business. That will not matter where you come from. So that if that money come to my county, I will be more happier than just basically having an individual being only getting an office. I'll be very happy if someone is appointed from our county, but the most important thing is the services being delivered.
Right. We need to shift gear a bit and go back to the news of the day, which is on the Supreme Court hearing, because there's a question from Matimu in Marsabit, and there's several questions around this. Hi, Cheche. If the Senate and National Assembly are sworn in on the 27th, to whom will they pledge loyalty, the sitting or incoming president, considering the court case? And that came from Matimu in Marsabit.
First of all, you don't pledge loyalty under the new constitution to individuals per se. You actually pledge your loyalty to the people of Kenya. Article 1 talks about sovereign power coming from the people, and you are answerable to the people. Chapter 6 talks about public service being answerable to the people. So it's more to the people than the individual. The only good question I think that is inferred from that is that who should rightly convene this session for being sworn in and so forth. The constitution just says the president. It doesn't say which president. Yeah. So because we have only one president now, which is President Kibaki, he will rightly convene us and will work with him for the period that is going to be there. I mean, if the case, hopefully, and I think so, looking at the strength of this case, will be thrown out. Or basically that the Jubilee side will win.
Okay, so this is now a partisan position that you're taking, because of course you're a member of Jubilee.
Yeah.
But isn't there
if that happens, I'm just saying, if that happens, it means that the period between when we are being sworn in and when the president is coming to office will be short. If that doesn't happen, for whatever reasons, then we have a long period where we will have a Senate and National Assembly and some kind of government that has never been imagined, running on the other side, headed by President Kibaki, with some cabinet secretaries that I don't know how they will be rearranged. For example, suppose a certain, you've seen the order that, and rightly so, that if you're going to be sworn in, you need to leave your position as a minister. Now, assuming that there is an assistant minister that was in that ministry and being elevated to act in the ministry, under what orders? They are no longer members of parliament. I mean, you know, it's a confusing, legally confusing environment, but we'll have to deal with it.
One of the scenarios could be, though, that the ruling goes against you, and that the whole election process is cast into doubt, which would seemingly nullify your election and the election of others.
There has been discussion all over about whether basically we are talking about nullification of all the election process. We're dealing with presidential elections. The petition from court is narrowed to presidential, and even more so narrowed to the fact that they want to reduce they do not want a whole rerun of the elections. They want a runoff. So it is a bit more narrowed in terms of the petition, and rightly so, because most of those people who are defending the other side are already elected to Senate and National Assembly. Should it happen that way, which I cannot imagine what would be the reason, because the Constitution talks about if you have a problem with an election of any member of parliament, you have to do an election petition. And there is nothing that stops a member of parliament being sworn in, and then you go through an election petition. It is the presidency that I think will be questioned. But if that was to happen, it would be catastrophic for the nation. I mean, to again spend about 40 billion to go for fresh elections. But I don't think there is a legal mechanism for that occurring.
Okay, so several questions are coming in for you. I'll put a few to you. Do you think the election was conducted through transparency and fairness?
I think so.
Okay. Congratulations.
Being from Jubilee, what do you think the answer was?
Well, I'm asking him a question from a viewer, so you can.
I mean, I can only talk about, by the way, elections on what I saw. Where I was, it was transparent and whatever. I didn't see other constituencies. And so, you know, as that process is unfolding, I believe so.
Okay. Do you think the country is in the mood for another election? And if so, where is the fun? Because, of course, we've been talking about the Supreme Court case and exploring the possibility that it could go against.
The response, interestingly, there is a debate that, you know, I have been trying to run also on my Twitter, which was after the application yesterday of the chairman of IBC. One of the concluding remarks he made was that the court must weigh between public good and private right. And I think that is a debate that goes on for long. You wonder even if, for example, the truth was that the elections were rigged and the process was not good, would it be public good to continue accepting results that were rigged in the name of protecting resources that are going to be applied and so forth? Those are debates in the court. I think the resources will be found depending on the level of, if the reason, basically, if the court finds that the only reason why the complainant, the applicants are complaining is basically over flimsy grounds, then that's where the weighing will go towards, you know, accepting the results. But if it is grievous, there is massive. I mean, the Prime Minister is talking about over 1 million votes, which I don't know how a person can steal 1 million votes and all of us don't see it. But if that occurred, I mean, that is a serious blow on the integrity of IBC and integrity of our system in the country, which I don't think is the case. Okay, the Constitution does not recognize coalitions. Which party should be leader of majority? And I guess, by extension, you know, who would be the leader of opposition as well, because they're all coalitions. It's an interesting arrangement now. We are no longer in the case of opposition versus whatever. It's about majority versus minority. And the question here is that sometimes the opposition is the majority. As you can see in American Congress, you will find that Republicans are more than Democrats, so they are the majority. So the Constitution recognizes coalitions to the extent, and I agree with what they're talking about, it's a limited recognition by pointing out that the majority leader will be the leader of a party or coalition of parties, that are most numbers in parliament. So that is the only recognition given expressly on coalition governments in the Constitution, but of course they are referred to then in the Elections Act. And the Political Parties Act. Right. This from Jane in Nairobi. As they jostle for positions in Senate, what about the gender parity? As the IBC still hasn't named the 16 women, youth, and people with disability nominees, will they be able to also vie for those positions once they get there, or will the men take all, since all senator-elects are male? My considered opinion is that we will not be sworn in before the gazettement of the 20 nominees, which will be 18 women and 2 men, which will at least assist in balancing, because I don't know of any elected senator, woman. I've not heard yet.
There's none, not even a governor.
There's none. There's no governor, there's deputy governors. And therefore, I don't think we will be sworn in without the 20 women, because it will be really serious problem if we were to elect.
That would be illegal, wouldn't it?
It would be
unconstitutional.
It would be unconstitutional in terms of composition. But again, the courts have already talked about progressive realization. But even as we work towards that progressive realization, women's voice must be heard during the voting of the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. And I don't think it would be right that we just vote in their absence.
Who will do the nomination?
It's already done. Political parties have already
present their names.
So the formula, it's just gazettement. It's for IEBC now to gazette, to pick,
the top
to
ones.
apply the formula, get how many
list
exactly they are. Now, yes, in the zebra list, but for Senate it's straightforward. For 16 is women, and the others are person with disability 2 and the youth 2, and which is man, woman, so 18 women. That is more or less an express function. There is no reason why they should not have gazetted by now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. We'll have to we have to pause now.
We have to pause.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll come back on your question. You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV. We're speaking to Kipchumba Murkomen, who's the Senator-elect of Elgeyo-Marakwet County. If you've got any questions for him, you can SMS 2442 or tweet Cheche_TV. But when we come back, we will explore the difference between this incoming Senate and the one we had at Independence.